Blog Talk Radio.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to A Dose of Dr. Gwen. I am Dr. Gwen, your host, and today is Thursday, June 10th at noon Eastern Time. Today's show is Show 25, Small Kids Online, Is It Safe? And today we're going to cover all of the little kids under 8 years of age who are sometimes online, sometimes not online. Some parents think it's great to have them online, and others think, they're too young. It's scary to have them online. So in the next half hour, I'm going to sort out all those issues and help you figure out all the ins and outs to helping them get online safely. Now, this is a big topic that I cover in my book that's coming out in October called Cyber Safe, because we live in a digital world, and one of the biggest gifts we can give to our kids is learning how to get online safely. I joke that our kids are already online from the time that they are born, but the honest truth is for kids from the time they are infants to 2 years of age, they really don't need any screens at all. They should have just a nice screenless existence, go about their life and play and develop and have a great time just exploring their world. They're going to be exposed to some technology just by watching all of us and their older siblings and relatives and other adults in their lives and other older kids. But in general, kids under 2 are not the group we're talking about. We're talking about the toddlers on up, the ones who start to get really interactive and really interested with everything around them. So let's ask ourselves a few little questions. How young is too young? Well, I've already said that under 2 is probably too young. They just don't need that sort of screen time. If you are going to use screen time for under 2, keep it to a real brief amount of time and highly educational material, and we'll cover that in a different show. But for the purposes of today, we're going to be talking about the toddlers on up. Now, we already give our kids computers every single day. For the toddlers on up, that 2 to 8 year old period, if you think about it, if you have a smartphone, a BlackBerry, an iPhone, and you're on the go with your kids and you flip on a YouTube video or give them a game to play and you hand over your iPhone or your BlackBerry, you're giving them a computer. If you let them watch TV on that or play a game, or they're watching you over your shoulder when you're on your laptop or your desktop, or they're sitting with you when you're watching TV on your family's couch and you're flipping through your DVR and you happen to decide you want to share something on your DVR's link to Facebook or Twitter, or you share a family photo through your Verizon connection, they're already being exposed to computers. So from a very young age, our kids are involved with computers, even if they don't know it. And part of this speaks to the fact that we live in a digitally connected world. It's not really an online or an offline world anymore. It's just the world. So as part of that world, it's up to us as parents to teach them how to sneak online, just as we learn to teach them to cross the street, or we potty train them, and we learn someday to teach them how to drive a car, and we teach them how to cook in the kitchen safely. Just as we teach them all of those important safety things and safety lessons in life, we need to teach them the rules of the road for the online world. So as you're raising your children, and you know that someday you'll be teaching them to drive, and someday you'll be teaching them safety in the kitchen, and someday you'll be helping them be independent out and about in the community, it's the same with computers. So one thing we can do is just add that to our list as they become interested and involved with the online world. So as they sit on your lap when you're doing work on the laptop or the desktop, some things that you can do is point out some things on the computer. Just let them know what stuff's called, that this is a laptop or this is a desktop and this is called the mouse. As they're pointing to things and they play their What's That game, you can show them what things are called. if they're on your lap while you're doing work on the computer, just be aware of the content and make sure that they're not seeing something that they shouldn't, and maybe flip on something that's age appropriate for them on SesameStreet.com or PBS, so they kind of get the sense that this thing that they're watching you click on that's making all sorts of fun noises is something that they may want to be intrigued with someday. So those are just some sort of preview ideas. And now let me talk about some guiding ideas that I know parents ask me about all the time. And again, when my book comes out, all of these things are spelled out in much more detail. But there's a few questions, 4 in particular, actually 5, that, well, really 4, I guess, that people always ask. The first is there a norm? Is there an age, like a magic age that kids should be online with? And there actually isn't. But there is a norm to be online. So I think that's really the norm, that we live in a digital world. So to say that your kids are not going to be online probably goes against the norm. But there's not a magic age to say that my kid has to be exposed by 2 or 3 or has to be exposed by 5 or 6. There's no magic in that. But there is a magic in making sure your children aren't fearful of using technology, and there is magic in you not being scared of technology. So those are the 2 norms that we have to embrace as families. Some families are more technologically savvy than others. So if you're one of those parents that's never found yourself comfortable with technology, having children is a wonderful time to learn it with your kids. So that's really the only norm. I sometimes will hear parents say, well, I don't know, I think I'm going to keep him or her just free of that stuff. Why do they need it? I didn't have it as a kid. Well, we can't think about what we had or didn't have as a kid because we can only think about what our child's exposure is like in our child's childhood, because today's childhood has technology in it. And the lives of our children as they get older to be teenagers and young adults will have technology in it. So to not help our children learn those skills doesn't prepare them for the future. So that's the way to think about norms. To decide if your child is ready is the next question that I always hear. How do I know? Well, you know, like you would any other interest that a child has in life, like potty training, for example. You know when your child is ready to potty train when your child shows interest in the potty, when they can tell you that they have to go, when they start tugging at the wet diapers, all of those good signs that we learn to sort of cue into when our kids are at the potty training age. Well, for computers, the same thing happens. When kids turn 2 to 3 to 4, they start showing interest in wanting to do what adults around them and older children do. They're wonderful at mimicking. So if your child is gravitating towards the computer and starting to show an interest in wanting to do what everybody else in the family is doing, go with the flow. Help them get online, but in an age-appropriate way that we'll talk about later on. There are many wonderful educational tools and websites that can help reinforce the skills that they're already learning either in school or at home, with reading and speaking and learning important offline skills about how to interact with others and be polite and cross the street. The key is the younger a child is, the more you want to keep an eye on the clock. You wouldn't want a very small child between 2 and 8 years of age to spend endless hours online, but you can let them spend 20 to 30 minutes. There's no harm in that, and they'll have a great time. Or if it's a rainy day or if it's snowy, no harm at all. Just let them have that time, and they can learn some important computer skills. Now also keep in mind the younger they are, they're going to need some help. So it could be a really fun bonding activity with you as well, especially if they're a young child who maybe needs help learning to read, or a very young child where you're reading to them and they're pointing to objects and learning their sight words. It can really be a very fun bonding experience. So, if they want to do it when they're younger, let them try. But if they're not showing any interest and they're very small, under preschool and kindergarten age, again, there's no huge rush. As they get into elementary school, all elementary schools nowadays have some sort of computer literacy program, and that is a wonderful time to introduce it to children. So I guess the best way of thinking about it is under 4 or 5 years of age, if they're showing interest at home, go with the flow. If they're not showing interest at home, that's equally normal, and don't worry about it. They'll be exposed in school. The next thing I will often hear parents say is, well, what about, what if I decide that, I'll sometimes hear parents critical of other parents decisions to let kids go online or not, or let them have certain technology or not. I think the one rule of thumb in the parenting culture is to never say never. You never know what you're going to do if you have an infant or a child under 2 until you have a child that's over 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 or 6, and you start facing those very difficult technological decisions yourself. So as parents, when it comes to technology, and I can attest to this myself, a lot of you who listen to my show frequently know that I have a almost 13-year-old and a 16-year-old daughter, and we face these technological decisions every day, and it's very challenging to figure out sometimes what to let your child do technologically. Never say never. You don't know what you're going to do until you face it with your own kids, and every family situation is different, so you really shouldn't judge other families. So when it comes to your kids, if you're a parent of a six-month-old or 1-year-old or 1.5-year-old, and you see a parent handing over a game to a child or a cell phone, I've heard some parents when I'm at a park or a mall or an airport go, oh, I can't believe they're doing that. They're going to fry their kid's brain. Well, you don't know. You don't know what the circumstance is there. Now, it may very well be that that parent's using technology too much, or maybe that game is inappropriate, but we don't know. So we need to be more forgiving and remember that until we walk in those other shoes, let's be a little bit understanding. Because once we walk in those shoes, the one thing I do know is once you say that never say never comment, you will eat those words one day. Finally, as a parent, another guiding principle is never make a technological decision based on your own fears of technology. Sometimes it's tempting to do that where we will be fearful of letting our child go on a website or letting a child be exposed to technology because of their age or something we're worried about in society. The best way to get over your fear is to learn the technology yourself and to do it with your child. If you're an active participant, and you close your participation gap in your family, you'll find your fear goes away. For small children, there are all sorts of wonderful screening tools you can use at home if you need to. There's some monitoring tools, but I really don't believe you need to lock down your computer, and you certainly don't need to ban your child from using the Internet at all. It's really very safe. As the Borg would say in Star Trek, resistance is futile. Your child will go on the computer even if it's at somebody else's house if you ban it. So never, never make a decision out of fear when it comes to technology. You'll find that you do better if you partner with your child and discuss it, because you'll find that once you start working with your child online at any age, it can become a very powerful, empowering pro-family moment. So again, don't be blinded by your fear. There's a lot that you can do as a family online. Just limit it. Just don't go whole hog. So the next question, the next issue I should say, now that you have those guiding principles in mind, is how do you step into the digital pond? How do you actually get your kids online? You've made the decision to do it. You've decided you are a pro-technological family. You're going to do this. And you need to now have a plan. What is your action plan going to be? Well, it's kind of like any safety moment or any safety issue you have in your family that's major. The example I like to use is the big decision of letting your teenager learn to drive a car, which is the big issue we're facing now with our family right now with our teenager, because that's probably the biggest safety issue most families face. When you're getting your child to learn how to drive a car, there's a number of steps you need to ensure. You need to make sure your teenager is the right age. You need to make sure they take driver's education and learn the rules of the road. You want them to learn all the different parts of the car and how to keep the car tuned up and what to do if it breaks down. You want them to learn all the safety issues, the do's and don'ts, all the etiquette and all that fun stuff. And you want them to learn how to be good offline citizens and pay attention to all the different cars out there. And then they have to take some sort of test. Now, for the online world, it's really very similar. You want to make sure they're the right age for whatever site you're considering. Some sites have age considerations, like we talked about last week with the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. Some will have it in their terms of service, and some might need just parental permission. You want to make sure that that you know where to go for tech help, that you understand the site, whether it's manuals or tutorials online, that everybody has the right skills to use it, that if there's some independence involved, that your child can handle it without frustration, or that you're there to participate with your child. that your child understands the online rules of the road and that you understand them too, that everybody knows about personal information and privacy, and that your child's the right age for the site so that there isn't any issues involved with that, and that everybody in the home follows the rules of the road. I'm not going to talk a lot about that today, but having a family online use plan is very helpful because then everybody, adults and kids, are following the same rules of just being nice to each other, making sure you don't give away personal information, understanding passwords and privacy with them, understanding when to get an adult. If you sort of attack getting online the way you would learning to drive a car, then it makes sense because then you're approaching which websites to go to just as you would driving. You would never let your child go right on a major highway, for example, when they first get their driver's license. Well, the web is the same way. You would never let your small child go on Facebook right away. You're going to start with something like Sesame Street. And then as they get older, they're going to move their way up to Facebook. So the web is built just the same way, with sites made for younger children and sites made for older children. I see some guests flying in and out of the chat room, and I would like to say hello to all of them. And if you have any questions, just type them away, and I will answer them as I go. So let me talk about some of the specific ages. I'm only going to talk about the ages of 2 to 4, 5 to 6, and 7 to 8. Those are the under tween and teen ages, because we talk about tweens and teens all the time, almost interchangeably. The 2 to 4 ages I call Land Rovers. The 5 to 6 ages I call pedal pushers, and the 7 to 8-year-olds I often call the training wheel group. And I spell these out in much more detail than I have time for today in my book, Cyber Safe, that will come out in October. And I'll probably reprint some of that material on my website when the book comes out, because I think this is the stuff that confuses people the most. Now, the Land Rovers, the 2 to 4-year-olds, this is sort of kids' first exposure to the web. This is a real fun age to just do a lot of parent participation. The kids have no idea what they're doing. They love to just click buttons and bang on the computer. Often they have their hand on your hand while you're doing the clicking. This is a great age for those wonderful educational CD-ROMs where they're just being read to and they're just enjoying the characters. When my kids were young, we used to have a whole bunch of their favorite characters just doing early reader CD-ROMs and teaching them phonics, and sometimes it was just fun books. It's a lot of like books on tape stuff, but on the computer. But there's also some fun early online games, believe it or not. Fisher-Price has an entire online learning website for infants and toddlers. They call it infants. It's really 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds, where they can just kind of learn early rudimentary computer skills with you, and it's a wonderful way for them to kind of just get exposed to the idea of sitting down and staring at the screen. Now keep in mind, for this age group, it's going to last all of 5 minutes, and then they're going to scoot away. So these are the Land Rovers, and they're very much Land Rovers because they're not going to sit. They're probably going to be kind of flying about you while they're just kind of noticing what's happening on the computer, and that's appropriate. You wouldn't want a kid this age to really spend a huge amount of time staring at you. Now, what I love about this group too is they will, as they approach 4 years of age, they may be ready for some early navigation stuff. And Fisher-Price does have something called the Easy Link that's also appropriate for the next group I'm going to talk about, called the pedal pushers. Now, this group is much more independent. They can really scoot about. You know those cozy coupe cars where it's almost like the Fred Flintstone cars where they're zipping about without using any pedals? That's how I came up with this name. They're really getting kind of independent on the computer. They can use a mouse. Sometimes they can use the touch screens. Some of them actually have some early reading and phonics skills. They can even use a typewriter. They're really a fun group to watch. And they have much more independence, and they can move about and read a little bit on these websites. And what they can certainly do is click away and have fun with some of the early builder sites. The Fisher-Price Easy Link is this little box that you attach to the computer. And I have no affiliation with Fisher-Price. I just find this a very cool device where you put in it these little characters where your kids get it pre-programmed so that they can only go to these websites. So if you have Big Bird there and they press Big Bird, it'll go to Sesame Street. If Bob the Builder's in one of the slots, it'll go to the Bob the Builder website, Dragon Tales, and it gets your child used to the idea of navigation, but gets them to the site where they're just playing games, and then they can sort of scoot about and learn how to navigate through these early websites designed for the 5 to 6-year-olds. Now, other sites designed for 5 to 6-year-olds would be PBS Kids, Nick Jr., Sesame Street, Magic School Bus. And there's also a few of the early social networking, social media sites like Webkinz, Club Penguin, Neopets, Shining Star. All of these are early social media, social networking sites. They do have some interaction, though, with other people on the web, other people who sign up their little characters, though. So 5 to 6-year-olds may be a little young for some of these sites. You really want to make sure that if they're doing it with you, and that you check the site out carefully and you make sure that you feel comfortable with it. I know a lot of kids who are 6 are engaging on these sites. 5 is probably too young. For the 7 to 8-year-olds, though, all of those sites I just listed, Webkinz, Club Penguin, Neopets, Shining Star, become much more popular. These kids have a lot more maturity to understand it and can handle it pretty well. You'd want to supervise them early on, of course. And these kids I call the training wheel kids. These kids are really getting ready to be much more independent on the web. However, they are incredibly naive. They will take everything at face value. If a friend of theirs says, hey, give me your password, I will not give it to anybody, believe you me, they will give it out. And then the next day, if they go on to Club Penguin, their stuff will be gone from their igloo. So this is definitely a group you have to stay on top of and work with in terms of online etiquette. And I think one of my favorite sites for this age group is Club Penguin because it really enforces the etiquette of the online site. So the others do too, but I think not as much. I mean, it's digital citizenship you want them to learn at this age because in another few years when they're 13 and over, they will be heading towards Facebook. So this is a good age to start introducing some of those nice social media, social networking concepts. There are some sites coming out for some of the older tweens that will be a nice addition. But for the 7 to 8-year-olds, they're not tweens yet. They're just heading there. So you want to make sure that they understand some of the concepts. They do need limits, so make sure that the 7 to 8-year-olds really, really understand what the limits are of the web. You know, this is a group that can shoot from the hip. So even if it's somebody they don't know, they're going to get really peeved if somebody steals their stuff from Club Penguin. So really make sure that they understand what to do if that happens and what the etiquette is online. A lot of parents at this age will ask me, what about filtering software? Should I just lock them out? Should I just lock down the computer? I don't think that's the best idea. You can use a monitoring site like Norton Online Family, which is one of my favorite sites. I will disclose that I'm on their board of advisors because I think it's such a wonderful product. But I think any of the free monitoring sites are as good. So as long as you don't spend money for a product, go ahead and monitor away because monitoring allows you to see what your kids are doing so you can discuss with them what they're doing. That's much more effective than locking down the computer. Discuss with your kids. Don't lock it down because you want them to stay safe and understand their behavior because at this age, they don't get it. They just know what they want to do when they're 7 to 8. They don't understand that it's right or wrong. 7 to 8-year-olds are very concrete. If they see something happening online that they don't like, they're going to react to it and maybe try to go steal somebody else's stuff from an igloo. What you want to do is talk to them about the fact that one wrong doesn't make another wrong and that what somebody did to their igloo was wrong. And in fact, Club Penguin doesn't allow that type of behavior. That's why it's such a wonderful first social media site for this age group because they have a way to police and they can become penguins that actually police each other. So it's a great site for kids to hold each other accountable, and it's a great site to teach them digital citizenship. So if you're looking for that introductory site to the social media world, a site where kids can learn good behavior from bad behavior, this is the site because they will actually get locked out if they don't follow the rules. And they will also learn a big lesson about giving out their password. Every kid gives out their password once, so let me warn you about that. My kids have done it too. They will believe their friends, they'll give out their password, their stuff will be gone the next day from their igloo, and then they'll wonder what happened. Even good kids give out their password once. Better for that to happen on Club Penguin when they're 8 than on Facebook when they're 13 or 14. So for this age group, I still like PBS Kids. I really do. And I still like Nick Jr. I still like Club Penguin. I think they start to outgrow Webkinz and Neopets at this age. Whatever you do, don't get talked into letting an 8 or 9-year-old sign up for Facebook. They are way too young. So just to review, where are we in letting small kids be online? Let your small kids be online. Just have a plan of attack. Let them kind of call the shots. Let them sort of sneak online as they want to be online. And hey, Dr. Jennifer Shu is in the chat room. Hello, Dr. Shu. I can't get to my little clicking keyboard right now, but I will give a little shout out to her. So let your kids be online and let them get online as they want to be online. And the final word of advice is don't live in fear. If you guide your kids online by your fear, then you're hurting them for their future, because our kids need to be online. It's us old parents that get all nervous and tied up with technology. And I got to tell you, and the last message I will leave you with is you will never use technology well in the eyes of your kids. And that will be true for the rest of your life. I sent my daughter a text the other day, and she told me I texted wrong. I'm not sure how one can text wrong, but that is where your life is heading. Your kids will always tell you you're using technology wrong, even though you've been using it longer, because that is the way kids' minds work. So you're better off to partner with them, so at least you can remind them, hey, I taught you how to use that, than if you don't help them on. So if you need help and you don't know where to go online, shoot me an email. And when my book comes out, I will be giving you more information about all of this. So the next show, no show next week. The next show will be June 24th in 2 weeks at noon. I'm going to talk about how to have a safe and unplugged summer without going crazy, because as you know, my new mission is for all of us to get unplugged more. I'm going to take July off, and then be back in August with a whole bunch of shows on everything you need to know about citizenship and being online for a safe and healthy new year. And if you have any topics you want to hear about in the fall, you can email me over the summer. So that's it for today on small kids being online. The take-home message is the answer is yes if they're over 2, no for under 2. And I'm pretty biased about that. I think there's really no reason for kids under 2 to be online or even to really watch TV. I'm becoming a bigger believer in that. Let them watch TV a little bit, but just not too much. So have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys all in 2 weeks. How about we take the show out with something really crazy like Spinundrum's Equal Rights for Robots?